I'm Cassie. I recently started my backpacking journey, and I think maybe 2 months ago I made a video about my beginner backpacking gear, and I have been asked to go into more detail about the first aid kit that I use. So I just want to preface this by saying that I am in no way an expert. I don't have any sort of medical experience or anything like that. This is just what I bring with me on my backpacking trips. Before we get into the actual kit, there's a few things that I think are very important that I want to touch on first. Much more so than the gear that you have is the knowledge that you have. So making sure you know what kind of environment you're going to be in, making sure you know what the weather's going to be like, what kind of animals are in the area, poisonous plants, anything that could cause issues when you're out there is really important to know before going into it. Having a general knowledge about what you would do in certain situations and kind of having a game plan going into it just in case something does happen. I think there's a thin line with that. You don't want to do all this research and like freak yourself out and be worried about all of these things, but you definitely want to have an idea of what you would do if something did happen, so that you already have that in your head. If something were to go wrong, then you don't have to be like, oh my gosh, like what do I do? So obviously I think that is the most important thing, is just the knowledge aspect of it all. And then obviously doing what you can to prevent any sort of problems. The biggest one being drinking clean water, making sure that you're not drinking any sort of water with bacteria or anything that could make you really sick or dehydrated, because that is one of the biggest issues that people face when they're out in the backcountry. You'll want to have a water filter. This isn't part of my first aid kit, but it's just something that I think is really important to talk about. So I just have the Sawyer Squeeze, a really simple system. Fill the bag, screw this on, filter the water. So with the water filter, it comes with this syringe basically, which you use to flush out the filter, make sure that it continues working properly, or if it gets clogged or anything like that, you can use this to flush it out. But this actually, I think, serves two purposes. This isn't a normal syringe like you may see in a lot of other first aid kits, but I think it could be used for that if you get some sort of wound and you need to clear it out, and just like pouring water or whatever isn't doing the trick and you really need to like get in there. You could also use this for that. And I think that's a big part of backpacking gear, is trying to find things that can be dual purpose. So on that topic, before we get into the kit, of other things that aren't necessarily part of the first aid kit, but things that I usually have with me, which could also be used in case it's needed in that instance, which is hand sanitizer. I pretty much always had this on me. And then the other thing is a good multi-tool. So now actually getting into the first aid kit. This is the first aid kit that I bought when I first moved into my van a little over 4 years ago now. As you can see, it's pretty large. It includes a lot of stuff. And from this, I'm not going to go through all of this. I just wanted to show you that this is something that I had long before I started my backpacking journey. And then I kind of made my own smaller kit out of this big kit. But there is a couple things in here that I don't necessarily bring with me. I might add these later on if I do either a longer trip, or I know that I'm going to be maybe off trail and doing more so of like a real survival type of like navigating my own trail and all of that. But I don't bring these because I'm usually staying on trail or just slightly off when I'm actually camping, and I just haven't felt it was necessary to bring these couple extra items just yet. And those couple things are things like this heat wrap. It might be nice to have. I haven't really felt the need to bring it. Same thing with this instant ice pack. this is something that you might want to consider having. It could be very useful if you sprain your ankle or, things like that, just to help with swelling. And then the last thing in here, oh, there it is. And then the last thing in here is this rescue blanket. This is good for like thermal retention. If for whatever reason you get separated from your gear, you don't have anything to keep you warm, that is what this could be used for. But also, because it's this silver reflective material, it could actually be really useful to use as like a signal so that people can find you if they're looking for you. If search and rescue is out looking for you, this would be something that would be really useful to help get their attention to where you're at. So again, good purposes, just not something that I've necessarily felt the need to bring with me at this moment, but something that I do have for if I want to bring it with me in the future. Okay, now getting into the actual kit that I do bring with me on my trips. So there's probably stuff in here that you might be like, well, I don't think I need that. So that's why it's so important to make your kit for you and to bring things that you think that you might need, because you might need one thing more than someone else and vice versa. Like, I think these types of things are so specific to each person that you just kind of have to, do your research, figure out what you think you might need, and then make your kit based off that. For me, this is what I have. This is just an ace bandage. This is good for, like I was saying, if you sprain an ankle or something like that and you just need something to help stabilize it. This could be used for multiple purposes, so I like having that with me. These are all gauze options, various sizes. I have gloves, which I think are very important to help prevent further infection, or just if there's a lot of blood or anything like that, having gloves would be helpful. I have hydrocortisone cream in here. I have an extra packet of electrolytes. I usually have multiple packets of these in my backpack, but I like to keep an extra one in here just in case, for whatever reason, I run out or someone else needs it. It's just an extra little one to have. And then I have a few different types of medicine in here. So this is some nausea medicine. I've got a couple Benadryl in here. That's obviously good for if you're having any sort of allergic reaction or things like that. I have some headache medicine. This is kind of extra strength just because I know myself and I'm prone to getting pretty bad headaches and migraines. So I like having that in there. And then I do have ibuprofen and Aleve in here for, again, you can use the ibuprofen for like headaches and stuff, but then these are both good pain reliever options and for inflammation as well. Then I have a Sharpie wrapped in duct tape. So obviously duct tape can be used for so many purposes. The Sharpie is something that you probably won't see in most first aid kits. I think it was actually around exactly a year ago, I got bit by a poisonous spider. Now, I wasn't on a backpacking trip, it was just a normal hike. But an important factor when you get bit by something is to keep an eye on how inflamed and swollen it is. And let's say you're in the backcountry and you do get bit by something, it's not always an emergency. And I think that's kind of where the knowledge aspect comes in, is knowing when something is an emergency and when it's not. Because if you get bit by something, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to end your trip. But keeping an eye on it and knowing what symptoms to look out for is so important. So I like to keep this in here just because if I did get bit, I can circle it, and then like watching that grow, if it goes outside the circle, things like that are good signs to look out for to know whether or not you really need to get help. So that's just something, again, the knowledge aspect of these things are so important. Tweezers, Always good to have Band-Aids, multiple variations. I think with any of these, like the Band-Aids and the gauze, you don't need a lot of it. I think the variation compared to the quantity is more important, because you can restock. Like if you use these things, you can restock before you go on your next trip. So the variation over quantity is where I put my focus. And then we've got alcohol wipes to make sure you're cleaning the area to avoid any sort of infection. And then this is like a sting relief pad. And then we've got burn cream. And this is antibiotic. Oh no! Okay. I think I have a couple of these little antibiotic ointments. I do have a thing of aspirin. This is something that I just like to have just in case, not even necessarily for me, but like in case you come across anyone on the trail who may be having signs of a heart attack or something like that. This is what you'll want to give them until they can get to help. Some medical tape to help keep the gauze on. Little scissors to cut any sort of gauze or band-aids or anything like that you might need. I have a toothpick and floss in here, you know. And this is like also good for like blisters and things like that. As you can tell, this is a very simple basic kit, but it kind of has everything you might need, obviously aside from like big emergencies. But the thing with first aid kits is you want to be covered for the basic stuff. This is not anything that's going to help you in a huge emergency. Maybe a couple of these things might be able to just get you to get help, you know, get you back off the trail so you can get help. Something that can stop the bleeding, or, you know, help with pain management until you can get back and get the help you need. This isn't meant to be like a cover-all situation. It's just supposed to help with the small stuff and help cover your bases when you're out there. And even this might be excessive to some people, like especially lightweight backpackers and stuff like that. But I made this kit specifically for me and for what I would like to have, or even would like to know that I have when I'm out there. And I'm very happy with how this kit ended up. It's very small. It's still very light. None of this stuff is heavy. But I know that if I were to need it, then I have it. And I think that's really the most important part of your first aid kit, is just giving you a peace of mind. In the end, it comes down to knowledge, and it comes down to making sure you're prepared and know what you would do in different situations. And yeah. So that's my first aid kit. Now, something that I think is very important that I actually do not have is a satellite messenger. The one I've been looking at is the Garmin Mini, but there's so many options out there that would be good too. There is, thankfully, a satellite option on your phone now, at least on the iPhones. I'm sure there's one on the Android as well. And so that does kind of give me a peace of mind until I can afford a satellite messenger. But having one of those, I mean, it could literally save your life if you need to be rescued. Something really bad happens, you need to be rescued. That would be a very, very, very good thing to have. I will be getting one at some point. I just can't afford it right now, but that is something that I wanted to include, so that if you can't afford one right now and you're going out in the backcountry, I definitely recommend having one. But yeah, I guess that's it. Like I said, you need to create a kit for you and for what you think you will need in various environments, how long you're going to be out there, and just considering all of the things that go into that. Oh, something else I wanted to add is maybe throwing in some water purification tablets. I don't have any of those either, but I do plan on getting some to add in here just as a backup to the filter. If for whatever reason you can't filter the water, or the filter breaks or it gets clogged and you don't have the syringe to flush it out. I mean, there's so many different instances where, for whatever reason, if you can't filter the water, then the tablets would be a really good backup option. The most important thing is the knowledge and being prepared and just having a plan for if something does go wrong. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or have any suggestions for things for me to add to mine, feel free to comment them below. And I will see you in the next adventure.
A new place, a new home, for a while, let me feel alive. Nothing to hold me back, take my time, just enjoy the ride.